This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. There are no Republicans representing New England in the U.S. House. In Connecticut, it's been that way since Congressman Chris Shays lost re-election in 2008 after serving 10 terms. But a former state senator, George Logan, is challenging incumbent Representative Jahana Hayes in the 5th Congressional District. And the race is one of the most competitive this midterm election.
Democrat insiders are desperate. They want you to be afraid of me. But I've worked with Republicans and Democrats to deliver results.
That's Logan in a campaign ad. Today, Where We Live, he joins us to talk about his campaign and answer your questions, too. Our conversation isn't limited to our live radio stream. You can also watch online at Connecticut Public's website, Facebook page, or on YouTube. Or you can call in with your question. Here's the number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. Again, find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. George Logan is the Republican nominee for Connecticut's 5th Congressional District. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Lucy. Pleasure to be here.
So how you feeling? What is it, 3 weeks to go before Election Day?
Exactly, 3 weeks today. I'm very excited. Momentum is going our way. We're gaining new supporters, every day. And, our message is resonating. So it's a good thing, yeah.
We played a clip from one of your early campaign ads. Part of that ad addressed a since-deleted tweet from the Democratic State Central Committee. It featured language imitating the Curious George children's book, something we'd asked Representative Hayes as well when she was on a few weeks ago. You called that particular tweet derogatory. Why was it important for you to tackle that particular topic in your first campaign ad?
Sure. Well, it's important that we focus on the issues that are important, right? Affordability, community safety, education, the opioid epidemic. And I could see the trend from the Democrat State Party and my opponent to try to, in my opinion, move away from the issues that folks in the district find important and start attacking me personally. So I knew it was coming. And I thought if I didn't stick up for myself early on, they would continue to do that and to do it even more so. We just figured we'd head it off at the head at the beginning of the campaign, and it has worked. I want my opponent to focus on the issues, focus on her voting record. I want to focus on solutions for how we can fix and solve our common problems. People in the district are having a hard time, putting food on the table, whether it's in Waterbury or Danbury, New Britain, Meriden. I've got folks throughout the entire district, seniors on fixed incomes, veterans who are struggling. So I think it's important that we show that there is an alternative. My campaign will provide that alternative. I will focus on affordability issues when I'm in Congress thinking positively. I will focus on community safety, and I think I'll do a better job than the incumbent has in those areas.
When we asked Representative Hayes about that tweet, she had nothing to do with that tweet, and she then deleted it when she had retweeted it. So when we think about, again, the issues at hand, you're talking about inflation and the economy as the primary issue of what you're hoping to address when you go to Washington if elected?
Yeah, absolutely. And, part of the issue is that we need to be a voice for the people of the district. We need to show leadership. So for that particular tweet, my opponent, she retweeted it and then didn't take it down until there was pressure to do so. And that's the type of weak leadership, I think, that and this sort of partisanship that folks are tired of. I want to show that there's a different way that we can go. I want to do everything I can to work across the aisle, Republicans and Democrats working together to solve our common problems. Here in the district, I'm getting a lot of support from not just Republicans, but also moderate Democrats. I've been cross-endorsed by the Independent Party of Connecticut as well. There's so many unaffiliated voters in the district as well, and just people that are just fed up with the party labels. They want people to represent them that's going to speak about their issues and that are actually going to help to improve their particular situation, their particular lives. And I think I can do a better job at that.
You said that you're tired of labels, but would you describe yourself as a moderate Republican?
Yes, I would. Yes, I absolutely would describe myself as a proud Connecticut Republican, and certainly a moderate at that. Yes, I'm more moderate when it comes to dealing with like social issues, and more conservative leaning when it comes to financial fiscal issues. I believe that the best way to solve our economic crisis here in Connecticut and as a nation is to have a strong economy. I don't believe in excessive spending packages. I believe, here in Connecticut has resulted in debt, and in Washington has resulted in, I think, inflation that we're seeing that's affecting everyone. So I think we need to be, more diligent and responsible in how we use taxpayers' money. And I'm also really adamantly against higher taxes, more taxes that are affecting working families and again, our seniors and veterans as well.
You're hearing George Logan here where we live. He's the Republican endorsed candidate, the nominee for the 5th Congressional District. You can ask your question by calling in 888-720-9677 or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. When we talk about campaign ads, your campaign recently sent cease and desist letters to local TV stations, airing one Hayes ad that suggested you, quote, refuse to support Roe v. Wade and that you side with extreme Republicans. Tell us about why you had to send those letters and where you stand on that issue.
Sure. Again, we need to focus on the issues that are affecting families and seniors and veterans in our district. And, the ads that are coming out, they've been very negative and very misleading at best, if not straight out lies. In the state Senate, I had a 100% rating in supporting women's reproductive rights issues. I've been consistent in my support of a woman's right to choose, as long as it's safe, legal, and rare. So to try to put me in that box, again, something that we just can't sit idly by and accept. It's giving voters, the potential voters, the wrong idea in terms of where I stand on the issues, and so we couldn't stand for that.
So you support a woman's right to choose, but with the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision overturning Roe, it permits the states to decide access to abortion, if it should be legal or not. And so, do you support that states should have the right to decide if abortion should be permitted in the particular jurisdiction?
Yeah. So my comments related to the overturning of Roe v. Wade has to do with the three branches of government. Right. I am running for Congress, not for the Supreme Court, and so my job will be to make sure that I abide by the laws and the decisions that come down, rather, from the Supreme Court. I support states' rights. I support Connecticut's laws when it comes to a woman's right to choose, and I will go to Washington to support and back the laws that we have on the books here in Connecticut. The Supreme Court decided that it should be up to the states. I want to go to Washington to make sure that a woman's right to choose in Connecticut is not infringed upon in any way. And I certainly would encourage other states to follow suit what we have here in Connecticut. But the issue is whether we believe that the Congress should impose that onto all the states. And again, the Supreme Court has made that decision. And until they decide to otherwise, I'm going to focus on making sure that here in Connecticut, a woman's right to choose, as codified, right, as baked into Connecticut state law, is not infringed upon in any way. And I will do everything, every ounce of my being, to support what we have on the books here in Connecticut.
Well, we know U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham proposed a federal ban on abortion. If you were elected and you were sitting in the U.S. House, would you support that legislation?
Absolutely not. I do not support any national ban on abortion. And I tell folks, look, when I go down to Washington, just like in any organization, like in any family, I'm not going to agree with any congressman, man or woman in Washington on every single issue. The current, for example, Republican House leadership. They know where I stand on the issues, but there are areas where we can work together, right? When it comes to affordability, when it comes to community safety, when it comes to education, there are just so many. When it comes to veterans, comes to our seniors, there's so many areas where we can work together. And I was known for working across the aisle, and I am. More of a leader than a follower. I will not be voting strictly along party lines in Washington. My opponent, conversely, has. She's voted 100% in line with all of the priorities of Nancy Pelosi. I will not be doing that in Washington. I will go to Washington to represent the people of the 5th Congressional District. I will work with Republicans and Democrats to solve our common problems. And for me, I will look at the bills for what they are. I will do what I can to negotiate and try to affect bills so that they have the maximum positive impact for everyone. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and otherwise, living in the 5th Congressional District.
I want to take some calls from listeners. Again, you can join us 888-720-9677 or add your comment to our social at Facebook or Twitter. Just search Where We Live. Liz is calling in from New Britain. Liz, what's your question for George Logan?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Logan. I was interested to hear you say that you're a proud moderate Republican. And I would like to ask you, since you're asserting and your campaign literature, as well as your words this morning, are saying that Congresswoman Hayes has supported 100% what Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, party line stuff. So I'm wondering, how would you have voted? Would you have voted with the party, or would you have defied the party on issues like, because you've talked about excessive spending packages, child tax credit, for example, the extension of the child tax credit, and I'd like to know how you would have voted on that, how you will vote on that if that comes up again.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So again, I will support bills and proposals that are going to benefit the people of the 5th Congressional District. The child tax credit certainly is important and impactful. I will say this, though. When we look at bills, part of my frustration in Hartford and what I see in Washington is that oftentimes the bills and these big bill packages, they have good elements to them and there are bad elements to them. And as a legislator here in Connecticut, as a congressman in Washington, I will have to look at each bill for what's in the bill, and then I'm going to have to weigh the pros and cons of the bill. And I will do everything I can to try to make sure that the bill addresses what the intended purpose of the bill is as much as possible. In Congress, unfortunately, because of the way the political climate is, there are a lot of things that are thrown into bad things that are thrown into good bills, and it's challenging for congressmen and women to fully support particular bills because of what's added. I'm going to make sure that I'm very diligent in terms of what are in these bills. I'm going to do everything I can to try to affect the bill language to make sure that it accomplishes its intended purpose. But rest assured, I will be fighting for the people of the 5th Congressional District. I'll be fighting for those folks that are particularly economically disadvantaged and that need assistance. But I also want to make sure that we work towards making our economy more stronger, making it strive. In the 5th Congressional District, we have lots of manufacturing companies with capacity to grow in Waterbury, Danbury, New Britain. And the federal government and even at the state level is not being very encouraging or helpful with burdensome regulations. I want to do more to help with job creation, job training, attract new businesses to Connecticut, help existing businesses expand. And I think those are the areas that folks want us to focus on.
John from New Britain tweeted a follow-up who says he's very concerned about Republican plans to cut Social Security and Medicare. So if elected, would you go along with Republican leaders McCarthy and Scalise, or will you defend these programs even if it means siding with Democrats?
I will defend all programs that I believe are helpful to the people of the 5th Congressional District. Part of the issue is we need to make sure that we can actually pay and fund these programs. And that's where if we have excessive spending in other areas, that's going to increase our national debt. It's going to affect our ability to pay for these types of programs. And that's why it's so important that we have laser-like focus on how we use the taxpayer money. But when it comes to Social Security, yes, we definitely need to make it as strong as possible. Lots of people are depending on it, and I think a lot of the policies coming out of Washington is hurting our nation's ability for some of these good programs that people are relying on and counting on.
So it sounds like you wouldn't support leaders McCarthy and Scalise who want to cut Social Security and Medicare.
I am not interested in cutting Social Security or Medicare. I am interested in providing good health care opportunities for folks. I mean, certainly if there's any sort of alternative that's decided upon by Congress that's going to make things better, I'm certainly all ears. But right now I want to make the existing programs better. I want to make sure that they're viable, and I want to make sure that they're actually helping the people, reaching the people in the 5th Congressional District that need the assistance. I mean, right now, for example, health care is unaffordable. You know, the Affordable Care Act, definitely very well intentioned, but it's unaffordable for many people. Here in Connecticut, options are very limited. I think we only have, I think it's only one option out there. We need to work together to do more to make health care more affordable. And many of the proposals and plans that have come out of Washington under the Biden administration have not helped at all. Right, healthcare is less affordable now, not more affordable. So we need to really focus on that and take a look and find ways to make healthcare more affordable, prescription drugs more affordable. I know there was recently a bill was passed, but prescription drug prices have not come down; they're still going up. So we need to do better.
So does that mean you would put pressure on insurance companies to help rein in costs?
Well, a lot of it, has to do with, right? Certainly you look at insurance companies, but it's also the government as well, right? In terms of regulations and how we are, guiding insurance companies in terms of priorities, in terms of costs and those sorts of things. So for me, it's not necessarily an us versus them issue. It's a matter of us all working together to bring healthcare costs down. Look, I'm an engineer, right? I'm not a medical professional, right? I'm a good problem solver, but I want to bring everybody at the table. I don't want just Congress, sitting in some committee rooms or halls somewhere. Figuring out how to fix the healthcare system. We need input from everyone. We need input from the healthcare companies, healthcare professionals, from the advocates of healthcare. We need to hear from families and the people who are utilizing those services to come up with a better solution than we have now.
I want to take more calls from our listeners. Again, you can join us 888-720-9677 or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Valentina is calling in from Farmington. Valentina, you're on the show. Valentina, are you there?
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Just calling to comment on what you said about being on board with a woman's right to choose as long as it's safe, legal, and fair. While I can certainly agree with the first qualifier, the second two bring me no comfort. It's the fact that it's legal in Connecticut is lovely, but if we don't protect that in other places in our nation, it won't be legal in Connecticut here for long. And as far as it being rare, I don't see why you feel the need to make any comment on that at all. If it's a woman's right to choose, that those are some interesting qualifiers to add.
Sure. No, thank you for that. And, we're certainly, people are going to have differences of opinion. I certainly am in favor of a woman's right to choose. But with, restrictions. I don't, this campaign is about contrast. My opponent believes in abortion with no restrictions. I am adamantly opposed to late-term abortion. And so that's...
You often bring up you're opposed to late-term abortions,
yes.
But the majority, more than half of abortions that happen in this country are medication abortions, so pills that are taken in the first trimester. And so I'm wondering why you keep bringing up your opposition to late-term abortion when we think about why people are accessing abortion and when.
Sure. So late-term abortion, one, is an issue that I'm hearing from folks throughout the district. And there are exceptions as well, particularly for emergencies and medical emergencies and those sorts of things. I just think it's important that we're clear in terms of how we approach the issue of abortion. And I do think there is a distinct difference. I talk to folks throughout the district, and folks are not, many folks are not in favor of late-term abortion, where you have a viable fetus that could actually be viable outside of the womb. It's something that I think we need to try to do our best to address the issue. And there's difference of opinion on there, and so it's just a matter of whether, if you are in favor of abortion with no restrictions, I do believe there should be some restrictions.
We need to take a quick break. Again, you're listening to Where We Live on Connecticut Public. My guest today, George Logan, the Republican-endorsed candidate, the nominee running in the 5th Congressional District against Representative Jahana Hayes. You can also watch online at Connecticut Public's website, Facebook page, or on YouTube, or call in with your question. Here's the number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. My guest today is former State Senator George Logan, who's running to unseat incumbent Representative Jahana Hayes in Connecticut's 5th Congressional District. Do you live in the 5th District? What issues matter to you? You can add your question for George Logan on our Facebook or on Twitter. Search Where We Live, or just call in. Here's the number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. George, we had a Facebook comment from Frank, who wanted to know how you would have voted on the Inflation Reduction Act. This act provided tremendous benefits for our district. If you were in the U.S. House, would you have been the only Republican to vote for it?
I would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act. Clearly, the Inflation Reduction Act is another one of these excessive spending packages that has not reduced inflation. Inflation has gone up. The cost of groceries and gas continues to go up. It has hundreds of millions of dollars in new taxes that middle class and working families have to pay. To me, that's just another example of one of the false promises coming out of the leadership in Washington. So the bill is not accomplishing its desired goal. I would have pointed that out in Congress, and I would have tried to modify it in a way so that it actually would have more of an impact on reducing inflation.
Such as?
Well, one, the Inflation Reduction Act, includes lots of provisions that have nothing to do with reducing inflation, right? There's lots of climate initiatives that are in that bill. I think those climate initiatives should have been in their own bill and not in the Inflation Reduction Act. I believe that, for example, focusing on energy independence in the Inflation Reduction Act would have been far more helpful than putting climate change initiatives in the Inflation Reduction Act bill. We were moving towards energy independence. The current administration, first week in office, stopped that advancement, and now we're relying on oil and gas from countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. And you heard Saudi Arabia just recently chose to cut production, which is going to have a negative effect here. I don't believe that foreign countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia and Venezuela and China can produce the oil and gas that we need in a way that's better than we can for the environment. So that's a huge example of where I would have put, again, the climate initiatives in its own bill, and I would have put American energy independence in the Inflation Reduction Act, because the whole purpose of the bill is to make things more affordable.
My understanding, part of the Inflation Reduction Act would actually force the Interior to open up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge again to bids for looking again for more oil and gas. And so I'm wondering, when we think about the onus on the volatility of the market,
Sure.
Thinking about ways that this country cannot be so dependent on other countries, the fossil fuel companies and markets are still reeling from the pandemic
Sure.
and the costs that they've lost. So they're limiting the risk. And so I was curious, what your thoughts are there in terms of, trying to help this situation beyond criticizing this particular act.
Well, again, helping the situation would be for us to achieve energy independence, right? Would be for us, because we have the ability, we have the Federal Reserve lands that are available where we can produce all of the gas and oil that we need. I think that is the best way for us to control our energy costs here in the United States. I also believe it's the best way for us to actually achieve our climate change goals. I believe, it's the engineer in me. Everything is a process. First, we have to achieve energy independence as we work towards weaning ourselves off of fossil fuels, because I think that is absolutely a noble goal. But in order to achieve that, I believe that first we need to obtain energy independence, where we're not relying on other countries, so that we can put plans in place to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels over time.
But back to my original question, recent attempts to open up new parts of the U.S. to oil drilling have failed because of the lack of interest from oil companies. They're limiting the risk. So how do we solve that problem?
No, I don't think it's a lack of interest from oil companies. It's a matter of the requirements and provisions and taxes that are put on oil companies to do the exploration. That is what has discouraged oil companies from doing it, because we were on the path of being energy independent. So, again, burdensome regulations, costly regulations, that's making it difficult and discouraging oil companies from producing oil here in our country. And that's, again, where I go back to it's a leadership issue. We need to have our laws and regulations that are encouraging of energy independence. So the Biden-Harris administration are not interested in our country achieving energy independence, not interested in oil companies doing oil and gas exploration in our country. So they're making it difficult for them to actually do that and afford to do that, and to do it in a way that obviously is going to be profitable for them.
We're going to take some more calls. Again, you can join us 888-720-9677 as I talk with George Logan, the Republican nominee for Connecticut's 5th Congressional District. Edith is calling in from Canton, also part of the 5th District. Edith, go ahead with your question.
Yes, good morning. Mr. Logan, I understand that you are, employed by Eversource. Do you feel that is a conflict in any way?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I work for a local water company since 1992. I started off as a junior engineer, became a senior engineer, then director of engineering for the local water company. I have managed and put actual water infrastructure to bring clean drinking water to communities throughout the 5th Congressional District, water pump stations, water treatment plants. I put water mains in the ground. Eversource purchased my water company back in December of 2017. I still work for the water company. Just keep in mind that thinking positively, once I win this election, being a congressman is a full-time job. I will not be working for the water company in that sense, and I don't see any conflict in any way. My entire efforts will be towards doing totally what's best for the people of the 5th Congressional District. But I tell you, I am very proud of my time at the water company, actually building infrastructure. Actually, I go out into the community to try to encourage water conservation. I'm on the Housatonic Valley Association Board of Directors. I'm one of the vice presidents of the volunteer board. I've been on it for several years. So the environment is very important to me. And again, I'm proud of my work, bringing the natural resource and clean drinking water to people throughout the district.
So this is Aquarian Water Company, a utility owned by Eversource. We got a tweet the other day who wants to know why Aquarian Water Company is trying to raise their rates during a time of high inflation. How will this impact people struggling to pay their water bills? We just talked about the high costs that people are shouldering. So how do you respond to that tweet?
Sure. So due to inflation, right, it's affecting families, it's affecting seniors and veterans. It's also affecting companies and organizations, right? The cost of materials, supply chain issues is driving up the cost everywhere. So, the water company is a regulated entity, and, it's up to our state regulators, the PURA, Connecticut PURA, to take a look at what the water company is asking for, and make a decision to make sure that folks are paying the right price for the water. So I trust in Pure to do a good job and do the right thing, and it's unfortunately what we are all facing with because of the high inflation.
Mm. I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit more about some of the other issues that you've been hearing from potential constituents in the 5th, including education. Yes. Education has become a hot-button topic. Yes. Politicians who are inferring that certain things are being taught in schools. So I'm wondering where you stand on supporting teachers.
Yes, absolutely. I support teachers. I support parents. Look, I believe that under current administration, education has been suffering. I want to bring back more local control to what our kids are being taught in school. I want the parents. I've been hearing from parents throughout the district that they feel boxed out of their child's education. I want parents to have more of a say of what's taught locally in their schools. I want the teachers to be involved. Teachers need to be supported. I talk to many teachers as well, and they're not happy with a lot of the mandates that come from Washington and the federal government. I think it's important that we bring more local control to our schools. I think it's important that, again, parents, teachers play a huge role in that. Have more say, and teachers need to be supported as well. And I will do everything I can to encourage, more resources to go towards that goal.
When you talk about local control, school districts are controlled by their local school boards who also make decisions on curricula. And these are school board members who are elected by the local community. And so I'm confused by the emphasis on there needs to be more local control in school. I have 2 children in the public schools, so I'm fully aware of how decisions are made in my district as well.
Sure. And it could be an example where you are satisfied with your child being taught at the local schools, but there's many parents throughout the district who are not satisfied, and a lot of, as far as the school boards, they're receiving their curriculum and their mandates are coming from Hartford and in some cases from the federal government as well. I just want the local communities to have more of control. I want those local school boards to have more of a say of what those curriculums are, with input from parents and teachers. I think right now it's too top down for a lot of parents in the in the 5th Congressional District.
We've also seen politicians running in our state as well as politicians in other states talking about parental bill of rights and the importance of keeping kitchen table conversations at home. What's your response to that? Is it a distraction from what teachers, staff in schools, and children need to make sure that they have safe environments to learn?
Sure. I mean, certainly having a safe environment is very important. But I do believe that we have, particularly in our urban areas, we have a crisis at hand in terms of reading comprehension scores are extremely low in areas like Waterbury and New Britain and Danbury. I think we need to focus more on the core basics in terms of reading comprehension, math, science. It's all about a balance. And I do adamantly believe that, again, with more local control, I'm hearing from parents they want their kids to master the basics, and I think we're losing sight of that to some degree.
Do you support public school education?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely support public school education, but I do believe that it is in need of a lot of improvement. Again, because I think that public schools and many of our districts are having a hard time really accomplishing the goal of educating our youth. The test scores speak for themselves. I do believe that we should at least have a conversation about school choice and give, look at the notion of giving parents the option of sending their kids to, local charter school or magnet school or even a parochial school. I believe that more competitions for students would potentially only improve our public schools. There's a notion of whether you feel that the public education system in the 5th Congressional District, particularly in our urban areas, whether it's working. I believe that it's not at this point, and we need to make some adjustments. To just go along with the status quo is not going to change the situation that we have now. And again, particularly when it comes to reading comprehension and math scores, I think that is a critically important area. And again, unfortunately, I just think my opponent has not done well in the last few years to improve that situation. It's only getting worse. So again, I'm looking to change the status quo.
I want to fit another call in from the 5th District. Nia is calling in from Waterbury. Nia, you're on the show.
Hi, good morning, Lucy. Thank you so much for having my call. And thank you, George. I appreciate you giving your time to answer these questions.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, one thing that Lucy mentioned is that it just seems like a lot of your stances are mixed with this criticism of the opposing party. And I have to tell you, as a constituent, as a voting constituent, it's literally the most annoying thing to hear. It seems so, especially now, after just going through the Trump era, it just seems like it's just I'm just tired of it, and it's exhausting. And but one of the things that you mentioned, and I only say that because you mentioned about healthcare costs, and healthcare has been a hot button issue for quite some time. So I'm wondering, when you speak about healthcare issues and how it can be improved, I feel like the cost of healthcare had been rising for over a decade. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely would agree with that. Yes.
Okay. So since we're in agreement, we can say that it's not the Democrats or the current administration that is rising costs. We are seeing rising costs everywhere. I just want to know, how can we truly, what are some ideas from your brilliant engineering mind? What are some true ideas that we can hold on to, some tangible ideas that we can to bring down healthcare costs?
And thank you, Nia. We're almost out of time.
Around.
We're almost out of time, Nia. So let's let George answer that question.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, for one, and thank you for that question. I mean, for one, I am on a local hospital board of directors. I've been on the Griffith Hospital board of directors for several years now. And you look here in Connecticut, the state is taxing hospitals, for example, more and more, and those costs, get trickled, down, to the folks that need our services. When you take a look at the rising costs of healthcare and the bureaucracy around our healthcare system, I think it's a matter of all hands on deck to come together and find solutions, find ways to improve the situation. So for me, it's a matter of just not sticking with the status quo, and it's disheartening to me if I come across as someone who's only towing one party's line. I've said repeatedly, I was known in the Connecticut Senate for working across the aisle, and I will do everything possible to work with Democrats and Republicans, negotiate, take in the ideas from various people and various stakeholders to solve our common problems. And to me, that's what's really important. I believe that that's not happening right now in Washington. I want to go down there to fix that.
We're almost out of time. I wanted to ask you this earlier, but there has been some confusion about where you stand in terms of President Joe Biden being elected fairly. And so I'd like to know if you could clear that up for our listeners. Do you believe that he was elected fairly? Because there are members of the Republican Party who still are claiming that the election was false and that Donald Trump, that was stolen from him. Those claims continue to persist. It is part of the reason the divisions in our country country are consistent. So I wanted to hear you on record tell us what you think about the election results.
Yeah, everyone is certainly entitled to their opinion. There's no confusion on my end. President Joe Biden is president of the United States of America. I want to go down to Washington to bring some better checks and balances. I don't want to go down to Washington to impeach any body unless they do something egregiously wrong. I think that in 2024 there'll be another presidential vote, and folks will have the opportunity to voice their opinion of the current administration. But I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in going back and Monday morning quarterbacking the last presidential election. That is not my goal. I'm looking at the here and now and moving forward to try to improve the lives of everyone living in our district.
Do you believe Joe Biden is president and it was a fair election?
Joe Biden certainly is president of the United States. We have our election process. Certainly, it always can be improved, but it's the fairest process in all of the planet Earth. Doesn't mean that there aren't improvements that can be made, and that's why we talk about different ways of improving the election process in terms of encouraging folks to vote, in terms of access and ability for folks to cast their vote. But there's no issue on my end in terms of whether President Joe Biden is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. I just don't like the job that he's doing, right? And I want to go down to Washington to bring some better checks and balances until we can actually hopefully replace President Joe Biden in 2024.
We'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. It's a pleasure to talk with you. George Logan, again, the Republican nominee for Connecticut's 5th Congressional District. As we head to break, you're going to hear Logan fronting his Jimi Hendrix cover band, Electric Lady Band. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Lucy.
And we're going to get analysis after the break from Paul Hughes with the Waterbury Republican American. You can join us, too. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. You just heard George Logan, who's running to unseat incumbent Representative Johanna Hayes in the 5th Congressional District. For more on this very competitive race, joining us now in studio is Paul Hughes, who's state capitol reporter for the Waterbury Republican American. Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back. Good to be back. So this is going to be an interesting race.
Very interesting. I said it's very competitive. How competitive is it?
Well, the Logan campaign just put out another internal poll that showed the race, as they called, statistically tied. Yeah, I think it was 46%. Now, internal polls, you could take them with a truckload of salt, I guess, if you want. But, I think that's the sense, that this race is tight and that Mr. Logan is definitely within striking distance. We should find out. Obviously, we'll all find out on November 8th. But it certainly feels like a tighter race than the last, two.
When George Logan was talking very much about the inflation, of course,
yes,
the economy, what are the issues that are impacting families? Is that what constituents in the 5th District are really concerned about?
Oh, yeah. It's like, it's the same all over Connecticut, probably the same all over the U.S. and all 435 congressional districts. Inflation and the economy are, the top two issues. Taxes is another big issue. But we also see, George went to the public safety crime issue here. And we obviously have Johanna and the Democrats focusing on abortion. We had, Vice President Harris here. So, discussing that with her. So there's that sort of dynamic going here where they're also appealing to the base because both of them need to get out their Democratic and Republican bases. And you're not going to win in the 5th District or probably anywhere else in Connecticut without the unaffiliated voter.
Right. And that was my next question is how is George Logan's campaign stances appealing to the unaffiliated, Paul?
Well, it's hard to say. I haven't really seen any kind of polling on that. But, the unaffiliated voters is basically the largest group of voters on the block, on the voter rolls. So, if everybody else is concerned about inflation and economy, you can count on those people being concerned about inflation and the economy. And we'll just see, how it plays out on November 8th. Do they say, okay, Hayes, Biden, the Democrats, they've had their shot. Let's bring in the Republicans and George Logan.
George Logan, as well as Republican Party, have really hit on his opponent, Jahana Hayes, being lockstep with the National Democratic Party, including Nancy Pelosi. And so I'm wondering what you've heard from the campaign trail in terms of, if he is elected in the 5th District, how much of an allegiance will he have to national Republicans?
Well, that's very interesting because there was a news conference in Meriden where Mr. Logan is now residing, in which he and the four of the other Republican House candidates, a fifth couldn't make it, lined up behind the Commitment to America, which is GOP leader Kevin McCarthy's midterm legislative agenda. So at that news conference, you heard Republicans again saying, my Democratic opponent, in his case, Jahana Hayes, marches in lockstep with the Democratic leadership. But I'll be an independent-minded person. Well, as we pointed out earlier, folks tend to vote with their party more often than not. And the counter argument from Democrats is, well, if you send somebody like Mr. Logan or one of the other Republicans who say, I'm going to vote a different way or I'll be willing to break with my party, if a majority of that party still votes to do the thing that that they're opposing, that's going to be the law. That's going to be the policy.
What did you think of how he answered the Joe Biden question?
I was, okay, he's the president. I think it was a delicate dance. I mean, there are obviously voters in the Republican Party and unaffiliated voters probably too that don't necessarily believe the 2020 election was on the up and up. Believe what former President Donald Trump and his supporters have said about the election being stolen, or maybe they just have questions about, well, was it really, a fair and free election and an honest election? So, I don't know how much of an issue that really is in the end when people go in to vote. I think it tends to be more of those pocketbook issues.
The reason I bring that up, when we think about the amount of outside money coming into the 5th District, we saw Vice President Harris here for Jahana Hayes. We've got House Representative Elise Stefanik, who is the third most powerful Republican in the House. There's a reason she is, because they ousted Liz Cheney for what she called out the Republicans for claiming that the election was stolen, as well as supporting Donald Trump. And so, when you're talking about the constituents, that doesn't, you don't think that'll matter to voters in the 5th? When we think about Stefanik, who also voted, she wasn't going to certify the results from Pennsylvania.
Well, I don't know how much of an association people make between, the candidates and the people they bring in to fundraise for them. Obviously, the opposition does. You heard a lot about from the Democrats about Stefanik, and you heard a lot from the Republicans about Harris coming in. Again, I think those sort of tend to reinforce, the base. Will it turn off some voters? I mean, the undecided, that sliver of voters. I don't know. It
remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's national politics, and this is more kind of a local scene.
What do you expect to see in the next 3 weeks for this race?
Oh, I expect to see a lot more money coming in and a lot more political ads. It was interesting because I was just, when you guys were talking, I was looking up some of the numbers there. And, part of the problem, I think, is for Mr. Logan, he's got to counter the cities in this district. And they have voted, Democratic. I was just looking at some of the, Danbury, Meriden, New Britain, Waterbury. She won by about 38,000 votes last time, and those cities accounted for like 31,000 votes. So, he's... it's that sort of, we've seen in Connecticut, the suburban versus, urban strategy, and really haven't seen anybody quite pull that off yet. But it's still possible, and this district is, a competitive one.
Again, Paul Hughes from the Waterbury Republican American, thank you for coming in. Today's show produced by Katie Pellico. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Special thanks to Gina Amatruda and the Connecticut Public's operations, visuals, and digital teams. Thanks for listening.